Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Steve. So, before I start this video, I am in St. Augustine. You guys can go on YouTube and look at how deep the water is in St. Augustine. Luckily, I drove away from the beach of St. Augustine. I'm still in St. Augustine, but towards Flagler College, where I go to school, the entire streets are flooded like 3 feet high in water. It's crazy. I was looking at videos of my school being flooded. They're saying school's supposed to resume on Tuesday. I don't know about that. We'll see. But right now, I'm in a motel, and the internet is really trash. So hopefully, I upload this video. So anyway, guys. Today I want to talk about who I think will win the Most Valuable Player award. I think it's between 3 players: LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and Paul George. Now, in terms of probability, I think LeBron James has the highest probability of winning the 2017 NBA Most Valuable Player Award. The reason why is because I think he will finish first place in the Eastern Conference. His team will have the best record in the Eastern Conference. Now, really quickly, the reason why I don't think anyone from the Western Conference will win it is, for one, the Golden State Warriors are no doubt going to have the first seed, and for two, it's most likely going to be the San Antonio Spurs at the second seed. Now, I do think Kawhi Leonard is a great player, but I don't think he impacts the game enough to be able to win a Most Valuable Player award. I think him, LaMarcus Aldridge, and maybe Pau Gasol, depending on how he can play, but mostly just LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard. I think those are the 2 best players on the team, but I can't really say one's more valuable than the other because they both do equally as much, but in different ways. Whereas in LeBron's case, he's clearly the best player on the team. In Carmelo's case, he's clearly the best player on the team. In Paul George's case, he's clearly the best player on the team. So that's why I think it's not going to go to anyone on the San Antonio Spurs. And I don't think it's going to go to anyone on the Golden State Warriors. One, I don't think the league is going to vote anyone on that team for the MVP. Not Kevin Durant nor Stephen Curry. Just the reasoning behind that, I just don't see it happening. They're 2 really great players, and to be able to give one over the other, there's no real distinction, because Kevin Durant, it wouldn't make sense to give Kevin Durant the MVP award, because think about it. The Golden State Warriors last season went 73-9 without him. So with him, and obviously some less role players that they have now, they have less role players, but with him, and if they still win 70 plus games, or even if they win less, how can you give him the MVP award? And how can you give Stephen Curry the MVP award? So, in my opinion, having the idea that it's going to go to either Stephen Curry or Kevin Durant, that makes no sense. Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge, that also does not make any sense. So, in LeBron James' case, some people were saying that Kyrie Irving actually has a chance to win MVP. And as long as LeBron James plays in the NBA, there is not going to be anyone on his team better than him. Now, there may be people that do more in terms of scoring, but there's not going to be anyone that's going to be better than LeBron James on his team. And for someone to say Kyrie Irving is going to win MVP over LeBron, you probably just don't understand how basketball works. Now, here's Kyrie's role. Kyrie's role is to be a scorer, and that's primarily what he does. He's lackluster on defense. He's lackluster in terms of passing and playmaking. So he's just a dominant scorer. He's sort of like a ball stopper, like a Carmelo in his prime. Well, like a younger Carmelo, because I still think Carmelo's still in his prime, but like a younger Carmelo before he learned how to pass and things like that. So he's sort of like a ball stopper. For someone to give him the MVP award, that wouldn't make sense, because he doesn't impact the game as much as LeBron James. Now, in Kevin Love's case, Kevin Love impacts the game slightly more than Kyrie Irving in terms of rebounding, interior defense, which has improved tremendously. Spreading the floor, doing a lot of stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Just things like that. So he does more than Kyrie Irving, but I don't think he would ever win over Kyrie Irving. It's weird the way the thing works, but because it's really not the MVP award. In my opinion, it's like sort of like the most popular award, even though it sort of is the most valuable player award. But just hear me out. So LeBron is obviously the best player. He does the most on his team, and I think the Cleveland Cavaliers will finish number 1 in the Eastern Conference, anywhere from 55 to 65 games. They'll win 55 to 65 games. Now, in terms of Carmelo Anthony and Paul George, I think it'll either be Carmelo Anthony number 2, Paul George number 3, or Paul George number 2, Carmelo Anthony number 3, depending on who has the better record. Now, the reason why I'm leaning towards Carmelo is because Carmelo, his team is definitely going to make the playoffs this year. So his team is going to be improved. And with him being the best player on that team, he's going to be in the discussion for MVP. No doubt about it. He's usually always in discussion for MVP when his team does good. Unfortunately, the last 3 years, the Knicks were rebuilding and he had an injury problem. So, Carmelo Anthony will definitely, I'm leaning towards Carmelo Anthony being number 2. It could be number 3, depending on if Paul George has the better record. But, if Carmelo does, obviously I think it's going to be Carmelo. Now, the reason why I think Paul George will is because Paul George has a new and improved team. He really does have a new and improved team. Having Jeff Teague, having Big Al, having Miles Turner, Thaddeus Young, having all of these solid role players around him, he's probably going to go deep in the playoffs. I think it's going to be either Paul George versus LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals or Carmelo Anthony versus LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. Me personally, I would like to see Melo versus LeBron because, those two just, their entire careers, that would be epic, man. But it'll be cool to see two friends hate each other on the basketball court for 7 games. That would be epic. And in terms of Paul George, again, Paul George is going to give LeBron work too. He may not outplay him, but he'll still, make LeBron work harder than usual than most other players can. So at the end of the day, I think LeBron James will win the Most Valuable Player award. Now, there is a slight chance. Like, for example, anything could happen, and, anything can happen in terms of injuries, which I don't like to say, but it's true. Like, for example, 2014-15, LeBron got injured, Kyrie got injured, Kevin Love got injured in the playoffs. Anything can happen. So if someone on the Cavaliers, someone vital on the Cavaliers gets injured, like let's say Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love, and the Cleveland Cavaliers don't finish in the first seed in the Eastern Conference, then I personally think that it'll either be the New York Knicks or the Indiana Pacers. Now, the reason why I don't have DeMar DeRozan or Kyle Lowry in the MVP race is because I don't think they impact the game as much as Carmelo and Paul George does. Now, the Toronto Raptors may have a better record than both of those teams in terms of the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks. They may have a better record and they may finish second in the East for the second straight year. But I don't think Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan impact the game that much to be considered MVP. I think the system in which the Toronto Raptors work in now is they used to only focus on offense. Now they're a defensive team as well. So now you have Jonas Valanciunas both on the offensive and defensive end, and I actually think he's the most valuable player on the team because he's a glass cleaner, he's a great interior defender, he's a shot blocker, he can drop buckets, he can take over at will in terms of in the low post, he has explosive games, but then in terms of Kyle Lowry is a floor general. He can score at will. DeMar DeRozan can score at will, but DeRozan needs to improve on defense. He needs to learn how to pass better. He needs to learn how to score more than just isolating on the wing and pass the ball more. Kyle Lowry needs to understand you need to develop some leadership skills in terms of not fading away in the playoffs. But obviously MVP is just towards the regular season, so the NBA playoffs is irrelevant in terms of the MVP award. But what I'm trying to say is that Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, and Jonas Valanciunas, in my opinion, they all impact the team almost equally. I think Valanciunas is a slightly more impactful than, DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, and that really showed in the playoffs when, he got injured and the Miami Heat forced 6 or 7 games against Toronto, and that was just with Dwyane Wade because Chris Bosh was injured and Hassan Whiteside was injured. So it was just Dwyane Wade pretty much, and Goran Dragic, but pretty much just Dwyane Wade forced a game 6 or 7. I don't remember which one it was. It was either 6 or 7 against the Toronto Raptors, and I think Toronto could have beaten Miami in in 5 games if Jonas Valanciunas were there to clean up the boards, especially with Chris Bosh out and Hassan Whiteside out. Though that Toronto Raptor team with Jonas Valanciunas, he's just so impactful in my opinion. Now, in terms of the New York Knicks, Carmelo Anthony, I think, especially now that Carmelo Anthony, last season, he improved defensively. He's passing at record high numbers. He had a career high in assists. He's gonna shoot more, which means his scoring can go up. If you guys don't know, the only reason why his scoring went down is because he shot less shots and he was passing more, which actually happens throughout his career. His numbers always fluctuate like that. It goes like literally you can look in Denver. His first season he averaged like 21, his second season 26, third season 22, and then 27, 28, 24, 25. It just fluctuates like that because he shoots more and then he shoots less sometimes because he passes more, he passes less depending on the scenario he's in. And he's passed more last season. So with him passing more, and he's also going to be able to take more shots now because he's not going to be double teamed and triple teamed as much. So now he can pass more, take more shots, and he was one of the best perimeter defenders in the league last season, which means he's impacting the game as much as LeBron and Paul George are. Well, I think Paul George not really a good passer either. But you know, he's impacting the game sort of like LeBron, but not as much as LeBron. That's obvious, right? But you know, so that's why I think Melo's in the conversation. Paul George is obviously in the conversation, and LeBron. So at the end of the day, I think LeBron's gonna win it. But if he doesn't, it's either Carmelo or Paul George. I'm leaning towards Carmelo. I might be leaning towards Paul George. I'm out of here. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section.